The bustling alien marketplace was a chaotic swirl of colors, sounds, and races from across the galaxy. Known as the Sarian Bazaar, it was famous for trading anything from rare minerals to living beings. Among the most sought-after commodities, human slaves were often captured in wars or raids. Each male, a strong-willed human soldier, stood chained, but upright amidst the crowd of alien shoppers. He was different from the other humans who had succumbed to fear or despair. His broad shoulders, his sharp gaze and defiant stance made him stand out. The electric cuffs on his wrists dug into his skin, but Cade refused to flinch. He had fought too hard to get lost now. He watched several alien species pass by, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and greed. The air in the bazaar suddenly changed, and a hush fell over the crowd. Cade felt a strange presence approaching from the distance. A large floating carriage made of shimmering obsidian glass floated into view. By 6 legless creatures, the carriage moved. Silently separating the crowd within sat a regal figure, an alien queen. Her skin was a deep iridescent blue. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, and her eyes glowed with a mysterious light. This was Queen Era of Circad, one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The handler, a stout creature with leathery green skin, noticed the queen's approach and pulled Cade forward roughly, showing some human respect. The handler growled, but Cade remained unmoved as the carriage came to a stop in front of them. The handler gave a soft curtsy. Queen Era stepped out gracefully, her dress floating behind her as if it had a life of its own, her eyes fixed on Cade with intense curiosity, searching her very soul. It said, her voice soft but commanding, "I will take the human." Cade closed his eyes, his heart raced. What would this alien queen want with him? He had been trained to resist, never bowing to anyone, and now he found himself at the mercy of a being whose power far surpassed anything he had ever known. The handler hesitated. "His Your Majesty, humans are known to be difficult rebels." Even El's eyes flashed dangerously. "I said I'll take it as spirit, and I like spirit." Without another word, the handler quickly processed the transaction. Cade's chains were unlocked, but his wrists remained sore. He looked at the queen, but she simply smiled in amusement. "Sure, you are mine now," she said softly. "But don't worry, human, you can serve me in ways even you haven't yet imagined." The journey to Queen Ali's palace was one of awe and terror. Cade, still recovering from the events of the market, found himself in awe of Capital Z. The city was a marvel of alien engineering, with towering towers and floating platforms connected by gravity, defying bridges. The sky was filled with various alien ships, and the air hummed with energy lures. Carriage floated silently through the great gates of his palace, which sat atop the mountain overlooking the city. The palace itself was a mix of glass and metal, glistening in the light of the twin suns. As they entered, Cade couldn't help but be awed by the grandeur that surrounded him inside the palace. It was even more magnificent. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings depicting the history of the cat's battles, conquests, and victories. As they passed through the halls, Cade noticed many other servants, all of different species, each carrying out their duties with precision and efficiency. However, none were human. LRA led Cade to her private chambers, a huge room overlooking the entire city. She gestured for him to sit, but Cade remained standing. His defiance still burned within him. "You are different from the others, LRA." He mused, her eyes studying him. Most humans would be trembling. Now Cade met her gaze, unblinking. "I am not most humans." A slow smile spread across his face. "In fact, I feel strength in you. Strength alone will not be enough to survive here." "Why did you buy me?" Cade asked, her voice firm despite the tension in the air. LRA, the smile faded, replaced by a more serious expression. "Because you intrigue me. Humans are considered weak and insignificant by many in the galaxy, but I've heard stories of your resilience, your ability to adapt and overcome. I want to see for myself." Cade's eyes narrowed. "And if I don't play along," LR leaned closer, his eyes bright, "then you'll find out why my enemies fear me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension between them grew thicker. Cade could feel the weight of his power, but he refused to be intimidated. He would buy his time. He would learn what he could, and when the time was right, he would make his move. The next few days were a test of will. She had ordered Cade to serve her directly, not as a simple servant, but as something more. She had him accompany her to meetings where powerful alien leaders and warlords bowed to her. Cade stood by her side, silent, but watching all of LR, and Cade's interest only seemed to grow. She began to ask him questions about Earth, about human culture, And about his life before his capture, Cade replied reluctantly, but she felt that AA was genuinely curious. There was something almost human in the way she looked at him, a vulnerability he hadn't expected from such a powerful being. But Cade was careful. He knew better than to let his guard down every night. He mentally went over his escape plans. He couldn't allow himself to grow complacent. He was still a slave no matter how much interest AA showed in him one night after a particularly long meeting. And Kate returned to her room. She seemed more relaxed than usual. She let her guard down a little. She turned to Kate, her expression thoughtful. "You are different from the others," she said softly. "I ruled for many years, but no one has challenged me the way you do." Cade shrugged. "I don't believe in bowing to anyone." A's smile was weak, but there was something in her eyes Kate hadn't seen before, something deeper, more personal. "Maybe," she said almost to herself. "Maybe that's why I'm drawn to you." Cade tense. This was not what he had expected. Elra, a powerful Ali Ian queen, was beginning to see him as more than a servant. The implications were staggering, and Kate knew things were about to get far more complicated than he had ever imagined. The silence in the room grew heavy after the queen's unexpected confession. To Cade, he shifted restlessly, his mind racing. The thought of the queen being attracted to him had left him more uneasy than any battle he had ever fought. He had faced enemies far more dangerous than any words, but this was different. The LRA's demeanor, soft but unreadable, took a few steps towards Cade, his gaze unwavering. "You are like no one I've ever met," he said, his voice now calmer, almost gentle. "I have ruled for centuries, but no one has challenged me like you." Cade's jaw clenched. He wasn't sure where this was going, but he didn't like it. "I'm not here to entertain you, your majesty. I am still your prisoner, no matter how you disguise it." He chuckled, a sound that echoed through the spacious prison chamber. He mused, "No, Cade, you are so much more than that. I see strength in you now, and something more potential." Didn't answer. He had no intention of becoming anything more than what he already was, a soldier struggling to survive. The era seemed to feel her hesitation, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You are not obligated to remain a slave, Cade. In fact, I have something else in mind for you, something much bigger." Cade's heart tightened in his chest, his mind working overtime to figure out where this was going. She had prepared for battles, for torture, for death. "But not this. What do you want from me?" he finally asked, her voice low but firm. The queen's eyes glittered. "I want you to marry me." Kate's body stiffened. Had she heard her correctly? What his smile deepened, though his tone remained calm. "You heard me. I want you to marry me. I've ruled for countless years, always alone, always distant from the mortals and lesser species beneath me. But you defy me, Kate. You defy me, and that is something I cannot ignore." Kate took a step back, shock freezing. "You think I'm marrying the same person who bought me like cattle?" Her smile faded, her expression hardened, but there was no anger, just cold determination. "You underestimate your own importance, Cade. I can be a queen, but even I must consider alliances, partnerships, power dynamics, and I believe together we could be unstoppable." Cage shook his head, disbelief and anger coursed through him. "This is insane. I don't know what kind of twisted game you're playing, but I don't care." Elra stepped closer. Her presence dominated the room. "Think carefully, human. No, this is not just an offer, it's an opportunity. You would no longer be a slave. You would stand by my side as an equal, ruling the Sirth Empire. With me, you could make a difference, free your people, influence the galaxy." For the briefest moment, Kate hesitated. Her words struck a deep chord in his inside, thinking of freeing humanity from the clutches of alien empires. Avenging the suffering he had seen was tempting, but he knew better than to trust the promises of a queen who had enslaved him in the first place. "I don't trust you," Cade said in a resolute voice. Era sighed, her gaze softening. Cade clenched his fists, torn between his instinct to resist and the possibilities she dead presented to him. Could he really trust her? Or was she just another form of manipulation, another way to bend him to her? "Well, what's in it for you?" Kate asked in a rough and suspicious voice. "Why me?" Hollis, she looked into his eyes gleamed in the gloom. "For Kate Varner is the only one who has ever made me feel alive. I have ruled for so long. What did I forget what it means to be challenged, to be questioned? With you, I see a future that is not dictated by duty or conquest, but by choice." Cade felt a shiver run down his spine. Ice words, though they were laden with power and authority, they also carried an unexpected vulnerability. For the first time, he saw the loneliness behind of her regal facade, the isolation that came with absolute power. But could he truly believe her? Could he trust a queen who had enslaved countless beings, including him? Leah took a step closer, closing the distance between them. "Marry me, Cade, and together we can reshape this galaxy." Cade stood frozen. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. This was more than a marriage proposal. It was a test of his resolve and his vision for the future. Would he do it? Could he accept the offer and use it to free his people, or would he become just another pawn? In the Queen's endless power game, the decision was before him, and with it the fate of not only his life, but perhaps all of humanity. The choice. Cade spent the night pacing back and forth in his chambers, repeating Au's proposal over and over in his mind. The luxurious room was a far cry from the slave pen where he had once been kept. But even using this comfort, he couldn't calm the storm of thoughts raging within him. Every instinct told him to refuse to resist a fight. But then there was the tantalizing possibility of freedom, not just for himself, but for his people. He could use the power of I to his advantage. He could outwit the Queen and turn his empire into a force for good. As dawn broke upon Sirit's twin sons, Cade knew his time was running out. Era would expect an answer soon, and any choice he made would change everything. The door to his chambers opened, and there stood Ra's expression was unreadable. Have you made your decision? Your decision, Cade? Varen asked in a calm but expectant voice. Cadila stared for a long moment, the weight of his choice pressing down on him. Cade took a deep breath, his eyes locked on the Queen. Every muscle in his body was tense, his mind hummed with the enormity of what he was about to say. He stood tall, the challenge in his stance unwavering. But beneath that challenge was a calculating mind weighing the possible outcomes. I have made my decision, he said in a calm but resolute voice. The bright eyes of anger flashed with anticipation. Though his expression remained serene, Cade exhaled, slowly approaching the Queen, but not for your mission. Your ento was deliberate, controlled, as if approaching the edge of a cliff. You speak of reshaping the galaxy, of freedom, the power, and destiny. But I need to know one thing before I accept something. Bullet raised, an intrigued eyebrow asked, why me? What do you really gain with this alliance? I am not stupid, and I recognize the power when I see it. If you wanted to use me, as if you could have forced me into submission, but you didn't, so tell me the truth. What is it that you really want? For a moment the Queen said nothing. Her expression, usually so regal and unreadable, softened a little, and Kay thought he saw a glimpse of something. Vulnerability, pain. She turned to the large windows that looked out over the city, her gaze distant. As she spoke, your right to question me, she began. Her voice was calmer than usual. I have ruled for centuries. I have seen empires rise and fall, species annihilated, filthy reborn. In all that time, I have maintained my power. Through strength, cunning, and fear, I have never needed anyone, until now. Kid closed his eyes. Suspicion gnawed at him. What has changed? Lyra turned to look at him. Again her bright eyes reflected the light of the twin suns. I have realized that to rule alone is empty. It is not enough to command fear, to rule subjects who bow to you out of duty. I want something more, someone who can challenge me, someone who can see beyond the crown and the power it holds. She took a step closer to his intense gaze. Cade, you are the first in a long time who has challenged me without fear. You don't see me just as a queen, but as a person, and I'm tired of being seen as just a ruler. I want to share that power, but only with someone who will not only obey me, but stand by my side as an equal. Kate looked at her, stunned by her gaze. Admission, the powerful Queen, ruler of a vast empire, was alone. This revelation made her seem almost human, but Kate wasn't ready to let her guard down. Do you still think an alliance with me will fill that void? She asked, her tone still skeptical. I think so, she said softly. Together we can change the course of history. I offer you more than freedom. I offer you a throne at my side, the chance to shape the galaxy in ways you could never dream of. With only you at my side, we could bring order where there is chaos, justice where there is oppression. Cade's heart raced as he processed her words. He had come to this alien world as a captive, a soldier, stripped of his dignity and chained like a slave. Now he was offered a chance to become something much bigger than he had ever imagined. But there was still the question of trust. Could I truly believe in Ice's motives, or was this just another power player asking me to betray everything I fought for? Cade, he said, his voice calm but firm, being on your side means turning my back on my people, my principles. BL shook his head slowly. No, Cade, I'm asking you to see the bigger picture. The universe is cruel, and power is the only way to survive. You can fight me, resist, and continue living as a prisoner, or you can accept my offer and use my power to change things, to help your people fight for the freedoms you claim to value. You're not betraying anyone, you're embracing a greater cause. Kate looked down, the weight of his words sinking in. She had fought for survival, for the freedom of her people. But what if it was right? And if the only way to truly achieve those goals was from a position of power? He could spend the rest of his life holding out planning an escape that may never come. Or he could take the opportunity in front of him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Cade raised his head and met his gaze eye. Okay, she said in a firm voice, I will join you. But you must know this, I am not doing this for you. I am doing this for my people, for those who still suffer under the yoke of oppression. If you ever betray, that if you ever use your power to harm them, I will not hesitate to turn on you. Ura smiled, her eyes shining with a mix of satisfaction and respect. I would expect nothing less. Welcome, Cade Baron, to your new life. Together we will forge a future that even the stars will fear. With that, she extended her hand, a symbol of their new alliance. Cade hesitated for only a moment before squeezing his hand firmly. The deal was sealed. The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. News of the impending union between Queen Ai and the human slave-turned-consort spread quickly through the Empire, sending shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Some welcomed the alliance, while others saw it as a threat, a disturbing shift in the balance of power. Cade, now clad in the fine armor of Sartha's elite, stood by during countless meetings with general advisors and diplomats. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them, and every move they made was scrutinized. Cade could feel the weight of his new role bearing down on him, but he remained vigilant, constantly assessing the situation, always looking for an opening to further his own cause. LRA, true to her word, treated him as an equal in public, although behind closed doors their relationship remained complicated. The tension between them was undeniable, and although they were united in their goal to reshape the galaxy, neither completely trusted the other. One night, as they stood on the balcony of a light palace overlooking the bright lights of the capital surf, Cade spoke. What's next? The Era stood beside him, her dress floating in the gentle breeze. He smiled weakly. Then we will consolidate there is power. Those who will resist this alliance, they see our union as a threat to their own interests. We must be prepared for war. Cade nodded with a distant look, and after that, the king's smile grew. After that, Cade, we will rule the stars. Kaidia knew that his journey was far from over. The road ahead was filled with danger, betrayal, and conflict. But for the first time in a long time, he had hope. Hope that together they could truly change the galaxy, or burn it to the ground. Trying. The galaxy trembled as the union between Queen Era and Cade became official. The Third Empire was now ruled not only by an immortal queen, but by a former human soldier. An unprecedented change in galactic politics. Cade could feel the weight of responsibility growing heavier with each passing day. Resistance to their union had begun to raise its head in the form of whispered threats and covert sabotage. Those in power, both inside and outside the Third Empire, were watching, waiting for a misstep. One such challenge came from the Outer Rim Coalition, a powerful alliance of independent planets that had always been wary of the Cyrac. Cade and Alla knew their first real test would come from them. A fleet had been spotted en masse on the outer fringes of Sort space, an unmistakable sign that war was on the horizon. Inside the war room of Cert Palace, Cade stood next to it as a holographic map of the galaxy flickered before them. In the room, the generals and advisors murmured, quietly discussing strategy. Although the tension was palpable, Cade had been on the battlefield countless times. He had never been in a position like this, making decisions that would affect millions of lives. The Outer Rim Coalition is preparing to attack, one of the generals said, tall insectoid creature in cheetah armor. They have already begun launching raids on our outer colonies. If we do not respond quickly, they will gain a foothold on our borders. Cade's eyes narrowed as she studied the map. She could see the strategy behind the coalition's actions. They were probing to test the weakness of his new leadership. They want to see if they will falter, or, as he said quietly, but firmly, we can't give them the luxury of time. Elra nodded, her eyes shining with a fierce light. We must strike decisively. We can't allow the galaxy to think our union has weakened the Empire. Cade is right. We can't afford hesitation. One of the more conservative advisors, reptilian alien with cold, calculating eyes, stepped forward. Your Majesty, respectfully, the human is new to this. Perhaps we should trust the advice of those with more experience in galactic warfare. Cade felt the sting of the words, but remained calm. He had anticipated resistance from some of his inner circle. They still saw him as an outsider unworthy of his position, but could knew if he showed weakness, now they would never accept him. Experience does not always equal victory, Cade replied in a Firm tone, the coalition is trying to exploit what they believe to be divided leadership. They expect us to argue and waste time. If we are to win, we need to show them that we are united, that we are strong, and that we will meet their aggression with overwhelming force. The room fell silent for a moment. Eller's gaze remained fixed on Cade, and a slight smile spread across his face. The corners of his mouth turned towards his advisors. Prepare him, head on. Cade will command the vanguard. The room erupted in murmurs. The appointment of Cade as commander of the vanguard, the elite strike force of the Southern Fleet, was a bold move. It would not only test Cade's skill, but also send a message to the galaxy that Queen Era fully trusted him with the most powerful military assets in the Empire. When the meeting concluded and the generals and advisor left, I and Kate were left alone in the war room. Cade stood by the map. His mind was already pondering the strategies for the upcoming battle there. He approached him, his silent footsteps in the polished floor. You handled yourself. Well, he said, his voice becoming softer. Now it's not the authoritative tone he used with his advice, but you know they'll continue to question themselves. Cade nodded. His expression was unreadable. Let them, I'll prove them wrong. Anger smiled, a flash of something almost playful in his eyes. I have no doubt you will. There was a moment of silence between them. The tension that had once defined their relationship shifted into something more complex. Caden wasn't sure what to do with that. He had come here as a slave, and now he stood as an equal to one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And yet, despite it all, there was still a part of him that kept its guard up around her. I'll need a full report on our fleet's readiness, Cade said, redirecting the conversation back to the matter at hand. AL's smile faded slightly and was replaced by the serious expression Cade had come to know. Well, you'll have it by the end of the day. But Cade, be careful. The coalition is cunning. This won't be an easy battle. I know that, Cade replied, but I'm ready. The Sura fleet emerged from hyperspace near Corbus AI, a planet on the edge of coalition territory. The coalition had chosen this system as their base of operations, and it was where Cade would lead the vanguard into battle. As the sleek black ships of the Circa Armada took up their positions, the coalition forces were already moving into attack. Cade was standing on the bridge of the Rim, the flagship of the Circa fleet. His mind was focused on the task ahead. The LRA had given him full command of the vanguard, and now it was up to him to show that he was more than just an ex-slave. With a quick tongue, this was his chance to show the galaxy and himself that he could lead. All ships are in position, sir, said the tactical officer, a multi-limbed alien with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. Kate nodded. Okay. Begin the attack. Full power to move forward. Shields and weapons. The vanguard moved quickly, cutting through the vacuum of space. Like a blade, the coalition ships rushed to meet the assault. But Cade had studied their tactics, learned their weaknesses. He had passed hours preparing for this moment, knowing failure was not an option. As the first wave of CERT NAVs fired, explosions lit up the dark void, and the battle began in earnest. Kate shouted orders, coordinating her fleet with precision. Her training as a soldier kicked in, but now she wasn't just fighting on the ground. She was commanding an entire fleet. Tilm took a direct hit. The ship shook violently under the impact. Cade grabbed the edge of the command console, his voice firm, as he gave new orders. Divert power to the rear shields. The attacker flanking her side left. We forced them into a pinch of the plan worked. The coalition fleet, taken by surprise by the Seer's aggressive tactics, began to fail. Cade could see victory on the horizon, but he knew better than to celebrate too soon. Sir, incoming transmission from the coalition flagship, the Chaos officer announced. Cade's eyes narrowed, and he put it through the holographic image of a coalition commander that appeared before him, a tall, stern-looking humanoid with silver skin and piercing eyes. You fight very human, the commander said. His voice was heavy with respect and disdain. But this battle is far from over. Cade crossed his arms, his expression unyielding. You have already lost. Surrender now, and your men might live to see another day. The coalition commander sneered. We would rather die than bow to the likes of you and your alien queen. Cade's jaw tightened. So be it. With a wink to his tactical officer, Ron, unleash one last volley of firepower. That demo of the coalition flagship. Cade watched as the holographic image of the commander flickered, and she disappeared, consumed by the flames of the destruction of her own ship. The battle was won. The Battle of Corbus, too, was over. The Southern Fleet had emerged victorious, and Cade Barron's reputation as a formidable commander was solidified throughout the galaxy. The coalition forces crippled, and the retreat had left behind remnants and the dregs of defeat. Cade stood on the Rim Bridge, watching the last remnants of the battle play out on the view screen. All enemy ships had retreated, sir, reported the tactical officer, his voice tinged with exhaustion, and relief stand down from combat readiness. Kate ordered recovery operations to begin. I want damage reports on all ships within an hour. While the crew dealt with post-battle procedures, Kate allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had proven her worth today, not only to AA and the rest of the CIRAD, but to the galaxy at large. But despite the victory, there was no triumph in her heart. War was never something she could celebrate, Sir. Officer K shouted, interrupting his thoughts. A message from the Queen. She requests your immediate presence back to the palace. Kate's brow furrowed. Shara rarely summoned him so soon after a battle, and the urgency in the officer's tone made it quite right. She said, straightening up in her "I'm on my way," as Kate left the bridge heading for the private shuttle that would take him back to the capital. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The summons of LRA had a sense of finality, as if something far greater than the mathematics of a battle was at stake. When Kate returned to the palace, he was immediately ushered into the private chambers. The doors closed behind him, leaving them alone in the darkly lit room. The Queen stood by the huge window that looked out over the sprawling city below, their figures silhouetted against the twin suns on the horizon. You have won a great victory today, she said softly without turning to look at him. There was a note of something unfamiliar in her voice, something almost melancholy. It was a victory for the Empire, Cade replied, though his eyes narrowed as he approached. But you didn't call me to congratulate me, did you? I sighed, finally turning to look at him. Her iridescent blue skin shimmered in the fading light, but her expression was one of deep contemplation. No, Kate, I didn't. There was a heavy silence between them. Kate could feel the weight of her words before she spoke them. He had grown accustomed to reading Ice moods, and it carried the unmistakable burden of something serious. There's something you need to know. I continued, his eyes locked with hers. Something I have hidden from you. Cade's heart began to race. He had long suspected that Era was keeping secrets from him, secrets about her power, her empire, and the nature of their union. But he had never pressed her, knowing such things would be revealed. He would in time. Now it seemed the time had come. I have ruled for centuries. She began, her voice soft but firm, longer than any being in this galaxy can remember. My power, the force that keeps me on the throne, comes from an ancient source, a relic known as the Stone. Cade's mind raced. He had heard whispers of the Stone, a mythical artifact said to grant its bearer incredible power, but most dismissed it as legend, a tale to scare children. And yet here was an LRA confirming its existence. The stone is not just a source of power, LRA continued. It is a curse. It binds me to this throne, this empire, and the fate of the galaxy. Without it I would wither and die, but with it I am trapped. Keed stared at her, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what she was saying. Trapped like the stone keeps me, I'm alive, but it controls me too. Aura explained, her voice tinged with bitterness. I'm bound to her will, and as long as I possess her, I can never leave this throne. I can never be free. Cade's mind spun. I had known AA as a powerful ruler, almost invincible, but now she saw the truth. She was a prisoner of her own power. Why are you telling me this now, Kate asked, her voice lowered. My gaze softened. For the stone is dying, Kate. Her power is fading, and when she dies, so will I. The words hit Kate like a physical blow. She had it, yea, more than she had ever expected. Despite their complicated relationship, despite the power dynamics and mistrust, there was something between them that went beyond mere alliance. And now she was telling her she was dying. There must be a way to stop it, Kate said, her voice rising urgently. A way to break the curse. Elra shook her head slowly. I have searched for centuries, Kate. There is no way. Kate's mind raced. She couldn't accept this, not after everything they had been through. Then we will find another way, she said, her voice fierce with determination. We will fight this together. Era smiled, a sad, knowing smile. You were always the defiant Kate, but some things can't be fought for long. A moment they stood in silence, the weight of the truth pressing down on them. Cade felt helpless, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He had fought battles, defied fate, and rose from slavery to stand beside a queen. But now, standing here, he realized some battles couldn't be won. What happens now, Kate? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. LR turned to the window, her gaze distant. Now we prepare for my end and the chaos that will follow. Kate's blood ran cold. The galaxy would not remain stable if AA power fell. The void would be immense, and countless deeds would rise up to claim Zat's throne. War would tear the galaxy apart. But Kate wasn't ready to let go of we won't find a way yet. Kate said again, her voice filled with conviction. "I won't let you die." Lele turned to look at him, her eyes glistening with indelible tears. "You can't stop him, Kate. But you can make sure the Empire survives." Cade stepped forward, his hand reaching out to hers. "We'll face this together no matter what." The REA, she stared at him for a long moment, her gaze searching his. And then, for the first time since he had met her, the unbreakable, untouchable queen of the Sirat allowed herself to be vulnerable. She took his hand. Together she whispered. And for the first time, Kate felt the weight of the universe resting on her shoulders. The weight of A's revelation hung heavy in the air as Cade retreated from his chambers. The battle they had just won felt small compared to the one they faced now, an enemy that could not be defeated by ships or soldiers. The curse of the ethereal stones had bound A to the throne, and if she died, he would take her with her. But Kate wasn't about to let her perish without a fight. He needed to find a way to save her, even if she had given up hope. As Cade walked through the great halls of the palace, his mind went over everything he learned about the Sirat and their history. There had to be a solution somewhere. His thoughts turned to the ancient archives. He had once heard about the forbidden vaults buried deep within the heart of the palace. If there was any knowledge that could break the stone's curse, it would be there. He made his way to the central chamber, where Elbor's trusted advisor was stationed. The tall, armored alien with bronze scales eyed Kate suspiciously. As she approached Bor, he had never fully accepted Kate's role at the Queen's side, but they shared a mutual respect. "I need access to the forbidden vaults," Kate said. Without preamble, Bor's eyes narrowed. "The vaults are off limits to all but the royal bloodline. Even you do not have the authority." Side's expression hardened. It's about the Queen's life. If we don't find a way to stop the stones from decaying, she dies, and the Empire falls with her. "Is that what you want?" Bo hesitated, his demeanor stern, hesitating for a moment. "I serve the human queen, as does every member of this empire, but the vaults are dangerous. The knowledge within them has driven many to madness." "I will take that risk," Cade replied, his voice unwavering. For her, Bor studied him for a long moment, finally coming up. "Very well. But you must know this. What about Varen? What you seek in those vaults may not be the answer you expect. For the forbidden vaults were located deep within the palace, accessible only through a labyrinthine series of halls and sealed doors that even Cade found disorienting. Bo led him through the long, dark passages, where the air grew colder and the walls seemed to hum with an ancient power. As they neared the final door, Bor turned to Kate. "Only those with strength will withstand what lies within the vault's relics and texts are ancient, powerful, and unstable." Cade nodded, preparing to open it. The door swung open with a low rumble, revealing a vast chamber beyond the forbidden vaults. It was unlike anything Cade had ever seen before. Shields lined with ancient tomes and glowing orbs filled the room, while strange relics of unknown origin floated in display cases. The atmosphere crackled with energy, and Cade could feel the weight of the millennia pressing down on him. He walked deeper into the chamber, scanning the rows of artifacts and books. Somewhere here was the key to breaking the curse. He was sure of it. As he approached a pedestal in the center of the room, a flickering hologram came to life. A projection of an ancient scholar from Sirat, the Een Stone. Kate said aloud, addressing the hologram, "What do you know about that?" The hologram flickered and began to speak in a language Kate didn't understand. Bor acknowledged that she had followed him inside and stepped forward to translate. "The Een Stone is not of this galaxy," Vor said, interpreting the ancient text. "It was brought here by a race that no longer exists. Its power is drawn from the fabric of time itself, and those who wield it are bound to its essence. How do we break that bond?" Cade demanded. Bor paused and then repeated the words of the hologram. "To break the bond, one must return the stone to its place of origin. But that place is beyond the reach of our universe." Cade felt a chill run down his spine. "Beyond the reach of our universe? What does that mean?" Bor looked grim. "It means the origin of the stone is in a realm no living being has ever traveled to. In return, the only way to sever their connection is to travel to the unknown expanse, a place between realities." C clenched his fist. "So that's what I'll do. I'll go to the expanse." Bor's eyes widened in disbelief. "You speak of the impossible. Human no one survives the expanse. The Queen will never allow. The Queen's life is what's at stake here." Cade snapped. "If I don't try, she dies. If there's even the slightest chance of saving her, I'll take her." The silence that followed was heavy containment. Cade could see him in Bor's eyes, loyalty to his queen at war with the impossibility of what C proposed. Finally, Bork nodded slowly. If you truly want to go, Bork said, then you'll need more than just the location of the expanse. You'll need a guide, someone who understands the nature of these ancient forces. Cade raised an eyebrow. He gestured to one of the glowing orbs on the far shelf. The last one registered guide to the expanse was a being known as a creature of an ancient race long thought extinct. Its essence was bound to that orb centuries ago, for reasons lost to history. If anyone can help you navigate the expanse, ESL. Cade approached the orb cautiously. The glowing sphere pulsed with energy, casting strange shadows. Across the chamber, he could feel something sentient within it, something ancient and powerful. Taking a deep breath, Cade reached out and touched the orb. Instantly, his mind was flooded with a torrent of images, visions of distant stars, black holes, and a swirling void unlike anything he had ever seen. And then a voice echoed through his thoughts, cold and strange. Who dares disturb the silence of the expanse? Cade stole himself. I am Cade Vare, and I seek to enter the unknown expanse and break the stone's curse. Een will guide me, the voice laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Cade's spine. You seek the deadly expanse. Fool, you know what awaits you in that place. I don't care, Cade said through gritted teeth. I have no choice. The voice paused, as if considering its resolution. Very well, I will guide you, see, for Varen. But know this, you will face horrors beyond your understanding. The expanse is not a place of life. It is the void between worlds where time and space collapse in on themselves. Only those with the strongest can survive. I am ready, Cade replied in a firm voice. The orb pulsed once more, and the voice faded. Cade felt a strange sense of connection to the entity within. Sir, the ancient guide turned to Bor, his eyes burned with determination. I have my guide, Cade said, and now I need to prepare for the journey. Bor bowed his head slightly. May the stars protect you, Cad Varen. You are braver than most. Cade left the forbidden vaults. His mind, he was already running with plans to journey into the unknown expanse would be unlike anything he had ever faced before. But if it meant saving the woman who had come to mean more to him than he could ever admit, then no force in the universe would stop him. Preparations for the journey were quick, but meticulous. Cade knew time was running out. He assembled a small crew of trusted soldiers and allies, each briefed on the dangers they were about to face. Vark had secured a powerful Sir starship equipped with advanced technology, designed to withstand the rigors of the unknown. The expanse of him, he watched silently as Cade prepared to depart, her eyes filled with a mix of admiration and sadness. You don't have to do this, she said softly. As they were alone on the landing pad, Cade turned to her. Her expression was unwavering. I won't let you die. For a moment the Queen's facade faded, and she simply stood vulnerable, scared but grateful. Thank you, Cade. Rakade in a brief hug, her voice low. I'll be back, I promise. And with that, each Varen boarded the ship, setting a course for the most perilous journey of his life. As the stars blurred around him and the ship prepared to enter the void, Cad knew one thing for certain. He would defy fate. By air, the ship hummed with energy. As it moved into the unknown expanse, he stood on the bridge, watching the stars pass by like a wake. As they left the galaxy behind, the crew was silent, tense, aware that they were venturing into a place from which no living being had ever returned. Boral had never given Cade the coordinates to the edge of the expanse, a desolate region of space where time and reality twisted in ways that defied comprehension. Could clench his fist, feeling the weight of his mission pressing down on him. The Queen's life hung in the balance, and this was the only way to save her. He had promised her he would return, but even now doubt sits at the edges of his mind. What if the skin was not enough to guide her? What if she could not survive the expansion? As if she sensed his thoughts, Sala's voice echoed through Cade's mind. You fear the deadly expansion. That is wise. Many have entered it, none have returned. But you are different. You have something to fight for. Cade closed his eyes, unwavering in himself. I am not afraid. The voice chuckled darkly. We will see. The ship's alarm suddenly sounded, bringing Kay out of his thoughts. The crew hurried as the sight outside the windows changed. A swirling mass of darkness appeared before them, a void that seemed to devour light itself. It was the expansion, the place where reality was broken, where the rules of the universe no longer applied. Entering the expansion in 3, 2, 1, the pilot's voice echoed. The ship shook violently. As they crossed the threshold, Cade felt an oppressive force pressing down on him. Like a great weight in her chest, the stars outside faded, replaced by an endless swirling void. The crew gasped. The ship's systems flickered, struggling to maintain stability. In the Odic environment, this place is wrong, one of the crew members muttered, his voice tinged with fear. Cade stepped forward, her resolve hardened. Stay focused. We knew this wouldn't be easy. Z's voice echoed again. The expansion. Test the mind, Kate of Male. It will show you things that twist your perception. Only those with the strongest will can survive. Kaida already felt the effects of the expansion, creeping into her mind, strange ions flickering at the edges of her consciousness, memories of her past twisted and distorted. She saw Earth her home. But it was wrong, a barren wasteland consumed by fire. She saw AA, but she was dying. Her once powerful form was withering before her eyes, gritting his teeth. Cade pushed the visions aside. Concentration. He muttered to himself, this isn't real. As the ship moved deeper into the expanse, the environment grew more hostile. The void outside seemed pulsing with a malevolent energy, warped the very fabric of space around them. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress. Minutes seemed hours, and hours seemed seconds. The crew grew more agitated, their minds frayed under the strain. Kate remained at the helm, refusing to let the expanse break it. Her thoughts remained on AA and the life she had sworn to save. She had come too far to fail now. After what seemed like an eternity, Cirque's voice spoke again. We are nearing the heart of the expanse. The source of the Eon stone lies within. Kate looked out the window and for the first time saw something within the void, a massive ancient alien structure floating in the distance. It was like nothing she had ever seen before, a monolithic construct that seemed to defy logic. Its geometry shifted and warped as she looked at it. This was where the Eon stone had come from, the source of its power. The answers you seek are within, Sir said. But be careful, Cadaver. The heart of the expanse is not unguarded. The forces that reside here do not take kindly to the intruders. Key nodded sadly. He didn't expect it to be easy. The ship approached the structure, and as they drew, Kate felt the oppressive weight of the expanse grow stronger and stronger. Her crew looked pale, their eyes wide with fear. But there was no turning back. Now prepare the landing party, Cade ordered. Let's go. And Cade and a small team of soldiers disembarked from the ship and stepped onto the surface of the ancient structure. The air around them was thick with a strange energy, making it difficult to breathe. The ground beneath their feet was cold and smooth, as if the structure itself was alive. As they ventured deeper into the complex, Cade felt a presence, watching them, a cold, malevolent force that seemed to linger in the shadows. The hallways twisted and turned in ways that defied reason, and every step they took felt as if they were walking into the jaws of an invisible predator. Suddenly a figure appeared before them, a tall, shadowy being with eyes that glowed with an unnatural glow. He spoke in a language Kate didn't understand, but his intent was clear. No, you are welcome here, the creature hissed. Turn around, or you will be destroyed. Cade stepped forward, his hand on the hilt of his weapon. We are here for the stone, and I am not leaving without it. The creature's eyes dug. And you seek the stone, foolish mortal. The power of the stone cannot be undone. It is bound to the one who wields it. I do not care, Cade growled. Tell me how to break the curse. The creature laughed, a raspy sound of sorting. No, you can break what is eternal. The power of the stone transcends time and space. To sever their bond would require a sacrifice beyond your understanding. Cade's heart raced. What kind of sacrifice? The creature's eyes wiped clean. To break the bond, you must give up what you hold most dear. Only then will the stone release its hold. Cade froze. The words hit him like a punch to the stomach. What he held most dear could only mean one thing. To save her, he would have to lose her. No, Cade whispered, his mind spinning. There has to be another way. The creature stepped closer, his voice cold and unyielding. There is no other way. It's yours. Save her life or save your soul. For a long moment, Kate stood frozen, torn between two impossible choices. She had fought so hard for to get this far, only to be faced with a decision she couldn't bear to make. But as he thought of any life they could have together, something shifted inside him. He couldn't let her die, not like this. With a heavy heart, Cade made his decision. Well, he said silently, I will make the sacrifice. The creature felt his eyes glowing with satisfaction. Very well, the stones, the link will be severed. But you must know this, Kate. Sweep them away. Once the link is broken, there is no turning back. Cade stood in the center of the ancient structure, the Eon stone floating before him. Its light pulsed with a dark and malevolent energy. But Cade could feel the link between it and it weakening. The ritual had begun. Soar's voice echoed in his mind once again. You have made your choice, Cade. Seeing the stone's curse will be lifted, but at great cost. Kate nodded, her heart heavy. She had made peace with her decision, even if it meant losing everything. As the ritual reached its climax, the stone began to crack. Its dark energy spilled out into the void around it. It shook violently, and Cade could feel the power of the expansion tearing at the fabric of reality. And then with one last deafening roar, the on stone Shattered the link was broken, Cade collapsed to his knees, the weight of his sacrifice falling upon him. He had succeeded, he had saved but in doing so he had given up on the only thing that mattered most in the chance to be with her cat or return to the Surf capital. The change man, the curse of the stones Ian had lifted, and I had broken free from their control. But the cost of that freedom was something Cade would carry with him for the rest of his life. When he saw Aura again, she was alive, healthy, her strength restored, but there was a distance between them, now a wall neither of them could cross. Cade had made the ultimate sacrifice to save her, but in doing so he had lost a part of himself. All a step closer to him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "You saved me, Cade," she said softly, "but I can see the sea in your eyes." Cade nodded, unable to meet her looking was the only way. For a long moment they stood in silence, the weight of everything they had been through hanging between them, and then Aura reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Cade squeezed her hand, a bittersweet smile on her lips. "You're welcome." As they stood together looking at the stars in the distance, Cade knew their journey had come to an end. He had defied the fate, broke the curse, and saved the woman he loved. But in doing so he had lost a piece of his soul. And yet, as the stars twinkled never-ending, Cade realized something else. He hadn't lost everything. He still had hope, and sometimes hope was enough.